Well, hello. Welcome to a teaser preview of how to sculpt a dragon. And today I will be taking you through some of the various critters I've been making. And we're going to find some time to sculpt a dragon head from scratch and uh, talk about some of the different approaches. So first off, I'm going to give you a little tour from the ones for some of the dragons I've been working on for this class. I've been calling this guy right here Spike for obvious reasons. And you can kind of get a tour of him. And let's isolate the head. This is my subtool palette, and for resolution's sake I've turned the head into a completely separate object. So I can go into solo mode here in ZBrush, and oh, well, that makes us lose our teeth and eyes, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off the body, and we're going to frame that up, and let me go down to the teeth and make sure that's framed up. Well, let's see if that's behaving correctly. Yeah, that's better. So what was going on there is that the local transformations, which means the rotate, was not working properly. When I click on the canvas here, you can rotate the model, and it wasn't rotating around. That model is rotating around the whole body, even though I had the whole body hidden. So that was a little glitch, so I had to just click some buttons and get my way out of that. I was using this local transformations toggle and the frame to kind of work myself out of that. So you can see this guy, he's got eyes as a subtool, and he's got some teeth as a subtool. And the rest of the guy I just improvised on. So let me show you another approach. Well, how about this guy? Very different approach here. He's got almost like a triceratops typed head, and he's got these almost like elk-like antler phalanges coming off of his upper jaw. Should have another guy. I might have to load him from scratch. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this guy you might consider sort of a more classical European storybook style dragon, and I used lion anatomy as the base of his body, and then I pulled out the neck and elongated the tail, of course, and we've got these very massive bat wings. And in the class, if you choose to take it, I'll be showing you how to go through all of this. My basis of this was Z-spheres, and if I switch to my Z-sphere for my wings and go into solo mode, you can see that I can pull, whoop, let's go into move mode. I was in draw mode there. This is how I built the framework, the sort of armature, if you will, to build those wings. And let me show you something else. This is some blocking out that I've done for a scale pattern, which I then captured as an alpha. So if I do grab dock, I get an alpha. Better to frame that up, make it a little bit bigger. So I'm under my alpha palette here, and I clicked grab dock, and now I have this grayscale information. So if I was to go back to that cat dragon we just saw, actually this is an earlier version, but it'll work. And let's divide him one more time. Whoops. So I switched to my standard brush, and I'm going to get on drag dot mode, and I'm going to pull up that alpha again. And I'm going to adjust the brush size. And something that's on here is, under the stroke palette, is the lazy mouse is on. And it's just getting in my way, so I'm going to turn it off. And there we go. We get some scale detail. And I could just keep doing that. Whoa. Now this isn't supposed to be the be-all end-all, but it can serve as a good sort of basis, and then you can come back in. I'm just going to smooth this a little bit. That's still too much. Still too much. I'm working with the mouse right now, so it's a little heavy-handed. Now I'm going to switch to the Wacom. And I'm going to get on my damn standard brush, and the damn standard cuts in to a mesh. Let's actually switch the material too. Might be a little bit easier on the eyes. And so going to cut in, and I'm going to sort of establish some scales feeding off of that pattern that the alpha gave me. And then I can hold down Alt, which will toggle the mode from cutting in, its default mode, subtract, to add, and I can get some nice, I can get the ability to crispen some of these lines up. And you can see I'm getting down to the resolution of the mesh here if I get in too close. But you know what, that's okay, because it's always best to do as much work as you can at the lowest possible resolution. So I'm going to get a wing of that coming off of there. I'm going to get some compression lines through here. Anyway, this is just a teaser intro, but you can see where I'm headed with that. And let's try something from scratch, okay? So I'm going to switch to a sphere, and I already have Dynamesh turned on. And if you don't know, Dynamesh is a feature that will rebuild the topology of your mesh. So if I turn on Polyframe, you can see those are the edges and vertices that make up this three-dimensional geometry. And real quick Dynamesh demo here. If I sculpt on this and I start to take it too far, you can start to see how the geometry is sort of shredding right there, and I can't get any more out of it. You know, like right here you can see I can get some nice smooth lines, but there where I pushed it out too much, the geometry is not letting me take my detail that I might want any further. So with this Dynamesh on, I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard, and I'm just going to drag in the background here, and it automatically rebuilds that geometry. So this is what it looked like before, and then after the Dynamesh, we get this nice even cage, which means that I can smooth this a little bit, and I can get back to sculpting in that area. And I can pretty much just keep doing that as much as I want. And so Dynamesh allows you to sculpt very much like it is real clay, where you can just grab material and put it on wherever you want willy-nilly, and you don't really have to think about the geometry. Now Dynamesh should be considered a prototyping approach. So eventually you might get into ZRemesher or by hand retopology to get your final geometry, which can be much more efficient than this Dynamesh geometry. But in terms of just getting down to working, popping a design out, Dynamesh is the way to go for sure. Okay, so I've got this sphere, and I'm going to switch to my Move tool. And one thing you're going to notice is right off the bat I'm just going to use very few brushes. There's a lot of brushes. I just clicked on the brush up here. There's a lot of brushes in ZBrush. Okay, the ones I'm going to use at this stage are going to be Move, which just enables me to yank things around, and Clay Buildup, which is what I was using before. It just sort of lays dollops of clay on there, or if I hold Alt, I can cut in, and then that sort of slash brush I was using earlier, the damn standard, which if you hold Alt, it'll pop lines out. And really those three brushes can get you through a prototyping stage almost exclusively. So I saw a really good exercise somebody had did online the other day, where they had done a human skull study, and they said that they completely used just the Move brush for the whole thing, and they took it to a fairly high level of detail. So I thought that was an interesting exercise. Okay, so we got the sphere, and I have symmetry on, so you can see the two red dots, which means I'm working on both sides of the mesh at the same time. And so I'm going to pull it to the side. So I'm rotating my mesh, and then I'm holding Shift, and it'll snap to either a front view like I have right now, or if I rotate a little bit further and hold Shift, it'll snap to a side view, which is what I want, because I want to get the sort of elongated profile of a dragon. So I've got this kind of egg shape right now, and I think I would like some sort of neck also. So I'm going to pull it out this way too. Pull that in. So this is what you would do if you had a lump of clay in your hands and you were just, you rolled out what they call a snake of clay, and then you're just kneading it in your hands to try to get some basic shapes. Okay, I have no idea where I'm going with this right now, by the way. So maybe we need a little bit more neck. And excuse me, once again, you can see the stretching that's occurred, and so it might be time to do the Dynamesh. Dynamesh is still on, but it won't take effect until I hold Control and drag a mask in the background, and then it rebuilds the geometry. So now I'm going to pull out a little bit more of that neck, I'm always adjusting the size of my move tools sort of instinctively. A little bit more neck. Okay? I'm not going to be building the whole body. So that'll be just enough to sort of show him off. There we go. I'm holding down Shift and I'm using the smooth tool right there. Once again, if you do this enough, it gets fairly instinctive. And let's see, what do I want to do? Looks pretty good. Oh, by the way, I'm working in perspective mode, and I don't usually like to start off with that. So I just turned that off. Okay, so that's what we got there. Well, maybe let's establish some landmarks. So I'm going to switch to the dam standard, and you can think of the dam standard almost as sort of a detail brush, but you can also think of it as your knife tool that you would mark in the clay, just sort of basically where you want things to be. So I'm establishing the mouth line here, tentatively putting some eyes in, tentatively establishing how far the jaw would go back. Maybe I could tentatively mark some large scale shapes in here. And notice how that's getting really weird, okay? Well, once again, that's Dynamesh. Dynamesh will solve that problem. I can smooth that. And I can go back to my Dynamesh and get the detail that I wanted. Okay. I'm just sort of investigating what I want to do here. Okay. These are not permanent marks. These are just sort of placeholders. Okay. Got a really great sock puppet here, huh? And it's very snake-like. Well, now I'm going to switch to my clay buildup, and I'm going to start to lay some what you could think of as bony landmarks. So I'm thinking about the bone above the eye right here. And I'm thinking about where the jaw comes down. Okay? And I've been looking at dinosaur skulls, particularly the T-Rex, and this gets really massive. And the upper jaw very much overhangs the lower one. So this is going to get really big. I'm not making a T-Rex, but I've taken the opportunity to inform myself with that anatomy. Just sort of blocking some stuff in there. I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to carve in here. And then I'm going to make this jaw much more serious. And I don't know if you noticed what I just did there. But let's zoom in so you can see it maybe a little bit more in action. I'm following a contour, a curve with my stylus. And I actually did that really fast, and I was putting a lot of pressure on the pen. It was very instinctive for me. Boom, 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 boom. And you see that's how that sort of built up that form? And I'm going to keep doing that. And then I'm going to go this way a little bit. And you see how that got built up? Does that make sense? So let's take him out of the snake territory by giving him that hook under the jaw that seems to be characteristic of so many dragon designs. Make sense? Alright, I'm do another Dynamesh. Rebuild. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to turn my Dynamesh resolution up a little bit. It was 40, so I was starting low, and I'm going to take it up to 64. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to redo that Dynamesh. And what that meant, let me show you the difference with Polyframe on. So that's what it was before, and now with the redo at 64, I gotta go further back. Okay, so this is the 40. Maybe I gotta go a little bit above more than 64. Let's go 72. And redo it. Not much going on there. It probably subtly got some more polygons, but I'm happy with it for the moment. So I'm going to turn off this Polyframe, and I'm going to smooth back. So it's a constant process of making marks and smoothing them back. At least that's how I approach things. Using the frame button to check the thing out. And I'm always checking my profile. So I'm snapping it to the side, I'm looking at that, and I go, does that look dragon-like? Not so much. So let's switch back to the Move tool. And how can we make this better? Well, let's make that jaw stronger. And let's make that stronger. And let's make the back of this head better. Moving on down the neck there. Whoa. Oh, mistake. Now from the front, I want to pull those in. From the bottom, see how I work all my different orthographic angles? Pull that in, swell that out. Okay. Let's give him room for a brain, huh? Well, this would be a legitimate way to go with sort of a beak-like nose, but I think I want to try getting a bump like that so I get a more interesting profile. And maybe I'll switch back to my damn standard. And I'll carve some tentative nostril holes. And I'm going to hold down Alt with the damn standard and sort of sharpen that line of the upper jaw, and then underneath it I'm going to sharpen that line of the lower jaw. Let's see how I like that. Okay. Well, let's think about the eyes now. So one thing to consider is that if you're going with a lizard basis, lizards, well, it depends on what type of lizard they are, but they may or may not, but most likely will have eyes out the side, because they're even if they are predators, they're still usually small creatures, and they have to think about other things like birds coming at them from all directions, and so they tend to have more side-mounted eyes. Now a dragon, ZBrush is saving the project there, so I gotta wait a second. Now a dragon, if you want a fierce dragon, you definitely want to put the eyes much more forward facing, and that is going to require that you change the shape of the skull out of this sort of lizard style template. So if I just switch to my insert mesh sphere, which I find is the easiest way to just get an eyeball in. Oops. And so I'm going to drag up some eyeballs, and those are maybe a little big, but I'm going to use my transpose line. So I'm switching to move, and this gives me this transpose line. And if I click on the sphere and drag out to the side, and at the end hold down Shift, I'll get a straight line. And then I can click on the inner circle and hold down Shift, and I can move that backwards and forwards only on that line's axis. So I want to keep it about right there, but I don't want it to be so far to the side. So I'm going to click on this red bar, and that snaps me a line that is 90 degrees to my previous one. And I can use the center once again, and I'm going to sort of pull that back. Okay? So now, you'll notice something else that it automatically masked the rest of the mesh that I was working on, which means I can move. Whoop, if I start sculpting, I would only be sculpting the eye, and I'm not affecting the rest of the thing. And if I hold Control down, oops, and drag a box, so oh, there we go. So I hold down Control and I click once in the correct manner on the background, and it will invert the mask, and now I'm back to sculpting, and I'm not affecting those eyeballs. But I want to take it one step further, so I want to go into my Subtool palette, and I want to do Split to Similar Parts. And what this does is take those two mass spheres and turn them into subtools. And I'm in solo mode, so I'm not seeing them right now, so I'm going to turn them back on. So now they are a completely different item. Okay? So if I'm on my dragon body, I can't ever affect those eyes anymore. So they're almost like they're hard marbles that I can't affect anymore. And that's going to give me a chance to work on the eye socket and the eyelid and all sorts of things like that, which is what I want. So this is kind of a side view eye right now. So let's pull this over. Do you see the directionality that I'm working? This. There we go. Now, that might be a good direction if I wanted to make a nice dragon. But if I want to make a kind of fierce dragon, let's kind of make this eye smaller and much more frontal. And I'm going to switch to Dam Standard, and I'm going to pull into this. Giving myself some notes over possible structure there. It's hard for me to stay in one place because I like to sort of work all around, and the difficulty I'm finding is that if I gotta talk and explain everything I do, I'm fighting that instinct. So you see what my brain just took over, and I just started using the Dam Standard to establish some scale patterns there. I was working on the eye, but I saw something else that needed attention, so I just moved to it. And that's the kind of instincts you want to build up. Okay? Hey. Well, I'm getting somewhere, huh? Okay. Let's look on the Dynamesh and maybe go up a little bit more in resolution. Go up to 98. And there we go. Not really doing a lot. I would like to get a little bit more resolution out of that, so I'm going to take it all up to 176. You know what? There we go. For whatever reason, Dynamesh just wasn't working, and now I've taken it too far. So let's go to 100 and turn Dynamesh on. Okay. That last one was 400,000 points, and this is 144, so I feel better about that. And I'm going to be able to use the smooth tool and get rid of a lot of the sort of polygon feel that I had before. Okay. So I'm going to do another shift with the damn standard. I'm going to crisp up those scale marks. This eye. So I want an eyelid, but I want to keep this bony area. And so I'm going to use a trick with my mask lasso. The mask tool, in ZBrush is generally on mask pen, and I could use that too. But if I hold down Control and click on the brush, I get my mask, my different mask brush options. So I'm going to switch to mask lasso, and in the side view, making sure perspective is off, I'm going to be able to drag and sort of get that bony area, right? Now I'm going to hold Control down and click in the background once to invert the mask. Now I'm going to switch to my Move tool, make a very large brush, and I'm going to raise this and overhang it. And I like how this is looking, so I'm going to sort of make this a plate that overhangs in this direction too. See what I'm doing there? I think that's pretty cool. I almost like the idea of these turning into horns. So I'm going to mask a little bit more of this, and I'm going to pull this back even more. And I'm going to raise it up and pull it back. And I think it's about time to Dynamesh, because you can see how stretched that got, right? But right after my Dynamesh, I'm going to go right back in to masking that area. And I held down Control and I clicked once on my masked area. I don't know if you saw it, but what that did is it blurred the mask. So it softened the mask up a little bit. And now I'm going to invert it. And I'm going to come more or less into a top view, still with my Move tool on. And I'll sort of get some flare out and pull this in. Let's see if I can get something I like. I don't like it from that side at all. So back to my Move tool, work on this side, pull that out, push that in. Got to check all the angles. I really kind of feel like those eyes are a little too close together now. So I'm going to Dynamesh. And I'm just going to pull that out. And I'm going to narrow this. There we go. Smoothing that out. So that, you notice this how this kind of got hollow in there. I could go with that. Sometimes goat's horns almost do that sort of thing. But it'd be nice to sort of not have that edge get so weak. And I'm going to show an important little button right now. If I didn't have back face masking on and I started sculpting this very thin edge, what would happen is that I would cave in this side. So even though I'm on add mode on the forward facing side, the back side would get sort of the reverse of that happening. So watch what I'm talking about. My backface masking is off now, and I'm sculpting. Everything looks good from this side, but from this side I lost all my form. And so backface masking is a good thing. This is sort of a custom button I put here. The backface masking is usually under the brush palette, under your auto masking, and there it's the same button. So I just set up a custom button that I put there. And it's easy to look up how to do that sort of thing. So I'm going to fill this up. Yeah, I think I just want to fill that in completely. And if I fill this in, so I'm getting overlapping edges down in there, and that can kind of be a mess, but what I'm going to be able to do is just Dynamesh this all over again, and it's just going to make a uniform mesh out of this. So here we go again with the Dynamesh, and I smooth that out, sort of inspect it, and now I don't have that nasty hollow reality going on in there. I'm still not crazy about these horns. I don't think I'm done. And I really just wanted to get onto the eyeball. So let me establish an upper and lower eyelid with my clay buildup. Now upper eyes always are dominant over the lower lid. Upper eyelid is always dominant over the lower one. And so I'm going to build this out too, but it's going to be tucked underneath the other one. I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to sort of gouge into this in a couple places. Checking it out from outside. Let's pull this down. I think I want damn standard brush. I think I want to actually separate that into two zones. Makes sense. Get some of this. Think about that. Excuse me there, I kind of shut up. I got into the flow. I'm just sort of tracing my forms here and seeing if I like them. Still not sure if those, I want those eyes closer together or further apart. think I want to solve the back. I think I want this built up, and I think that might help that profile if this gets more serious. Yeah, I think that is getting better. Maybe it needs some flares coming off of this. Like that. Ugh. Nope. You just try things. Yeah, I think I want these eyes further apart. Or forward facing. And I'm losing my eyeball, but I can move it. Okay, so back to the subtool. And it's actually embedded inside there, so I'm going to turn on transparency for a second and drag out my transform line. Oops, and it's masked. So I had to clear the mask just by clicking in the background. So now that I know where it's at, I can turn the transparency off and work with getting it into a good place. I think that's about right. So I'm going to go back, actually rotate this a little bit. So rotate works just like the move tool, only I'm going to use the end one. So this is sort of the axis, and then this is my angle with which I'm able to rotate it. And so eyes, even human eyes, sort of have this taller, it's sticking out further on top than it is the bottom type of thing. And that got my eyelid back into place, and I think he looks a lot better than he did before. He's got big eyes, and they're forward facing, and they're kind of curved, so he looks, he's not viciously evil looking, but he's not Barney the dinosaur anymore, I don't think. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dragon, doing a Dynamesh. Hopefully I didn't just crash. Yep, I got it back. I just had to be very patient there. If I had made one wrong move, it could have I could have lost it. So I'm going to take this moment to save this guy. Okay. Well, I think he's very cliched. That's what I think right now. And so I prepared some insert mesh brushes that are just going to bring some other shapes in here. These are just some shapes I made earlier on another dragon. And now I'm just sort of going to place them. Excuse me. Saving the project there. That's a little weird. but I think it's already helping. So I'm going to rotate them back a little bit, and I'm going to rotate them up. There we go. I think that brings some more information in there that gets much more interesting. Take that out a little bit so it clears. And if I was to clear the mask and Dynamesh it, it would merge right there. So what I'm going to do is switch back to my clay buildup, hold Control, invert the mask by clicking once in the background, and see now the insert mesh is masked, and I'm going to carve away that area that's touching where I was going to insert. So I'm carving away, and now I'm smoothing. I'm going to carve away some more. And there we go. But I'm trying to get that same form maybe happening in this horn that I already sculpted on there. I'm going to invert that mask one more time. Rotate those horns a little bit further out, and then move them back. And I need to move them back down. There we go. So they kind of got that seat. Invert the mask again. Carve this away. What I'm worried about is that those shapes merging in the Dynamesh. You can always turn the Dynamesh resolution up even more and prevent that, but I'd kind of like to keep it as low as possible resolution wise for as long as I can. So, and plus it's just a better design for them to have a very clear separation, I think. So yeah. There we go. Switch to my move tool, pull this horn out, maybe give it some of that same feeling. Ooh, yeah. I kind of like that. Maybe one big one here in the center. I just cleared the mask. I'll grab this guy, invert it. How's that look? Whoop. It sort of went down the back too, didn't it? I'm going to use my rotate on that. So it becomes a distinct profile. See, it was like this, and those horns I just added with the insert mesh and the spike I just pulled out were kind of merging in the side silhouette. So I'm going to rotate this spike so it gets a distinct profile. Carving a slot here because his neck's got to bend, right? So if I'm going to design that thing, I got to think if he raises his head up, that might start to hit. So I'm going to sort of have a little indented area there. Now I definitely need to Dynamesh, because I want to keep working on this spike, this upward spike. And I think what I want is some sort of random protrusions from that. So I'm going to go back to my mask pen, and I'm going to sort of dot this with little masks, little studs from my mask. And then I'm going to invert it. And it's very subtle, but now I'm going to use my move tool to pull out that. And that gives it some nice extra boniness that I quite like. And so I'm going to Dynamesh. Whoop, I need to do some smoothing there in the center, because that's weird. There we go. Yeah. Now I'm going to Dynamesh that. So I like his headgear. Let's think about the eyes some more. So remember, I've got that extra resolution now from that Dynamesh. And so I'm going to be able to crispen, holding down Alt with the damn standard to establish a raised area here on both the top and bottom eyelids. I'm thinking about where this horn grows out of now, and I'm trying to keep my lines very fluid, and now I'm going to raise that area where it pops out of, and I'm going to raise the area immediately on the other side of that too. You know, the horns are kind of like roots. I'm going to get that same type of thing right here too. So I'm going to carve in. And make that root more massive. Kind of got pig nose. So what can I do about that? Let's isolate the lower jaw and isolate forward from that area and use my move tool. See what I can get. Thinking about the profile here. Do I want this to be very sharp? I want it to be more pointed. That's kind of nice, but maybe not quite so much. But I know what I want is I want a narrower nose opening, I think. Building this up, I think I will give him sort of a beak. So this whole time I've pretty much only been using the move, the clay buildup, and the damn standard brush. You know, that under jaw is kind of massive, and that's kind of cool, but I think he needs a more massive under neck to go with that. Or maybe it's just too much. I just sort of instinctively switched to another brush, which is the Trim Dynamic brush. And you can kind of consider it a flatten brush. And I'm just using this right now to take away the mass on the underside of that jaw, from the side view anyway. And then maybe a little bit from underneath. But I'm keeping this ridge that I established. Switching back to my clay buildup. This ridge that I established as the bone of that lower jaw. And things just sort of fall away. From there. Oops. Okay. Now, I haven't been thinking about scales yet. But I think I'm going to start to think about scales. And so, rather than using an alpha, I'm going to think of them a little bit more sculpturally. And I'm thinking about really massive, bony projections that are going to stick out all over. So I'm going to get some raised areas, a rhythm of raised areas. I'm just sort of mark making, almost like scribbling in certain areas. And now I'm actually going to carve away in a very similar fashion in some places. Just trying to get some rhythm. Carve away and then add a nodule. Carve away, carve away, carve away, carve away, add a nodule. Definitely need to get this same thing going on up here. Now these aren't going to be all the scales, but they're just going to be the most dominant ones. I think he's an interesting guy. Let's get this top lip a little much more dominant. Might be time for a material change, just to see what we're getting. And that actually might wrap it up. Let's turn the perspective on, get a nice view. I think I could work that silhouette a little bit more, because once you pop into perspective, the angles change. But I think that's kind of cool. Let's give this a render. Actually, let's change the material of the eye. So I'm switching to material, and I'm on my eye subtool, and I'm going to go color fill object, and I'm going to switch to RGB, and let's try a dark yellow, and we're going to fill it. So now I'm going to switch back to my main one. So I've got these sort of dark eyes now, and just to get a good render, I think I'm done with my Dynamesh for the time being, so I'm going to divide, and that's just going to smooth things out a little bit. Just lightly smoothing this surface, kind of getting rid of my tool marks a little bit. And this particular bronze material works best in the best render. So I'm going to turn best render on, and I'm going to get some extra mapping information there with the material. And then I'm going to repress the press preview render button in order to get my shadows and my anti-aliasing back. Okay, there we go. Just some exploration of concept in ZBrush. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for some more. Thank you. Bye.